Hi there all. I just thought we'd better have a bit of a conversation about the last video that was posted on my channel in regards to the Kingdom of Mana and some pretty esoteric information that is missing from everybody's table. Because it's pretty critical, pretty important. If you have a look in that video, other than certain announcements about technologies and programs and wonderful relief packages that are currently being offered and brought to many different nations of the country, of the planet at the moment, what you'll find in there is a couple of bits of subject matter that I wanted to talk about in between what's being shown and stated there. There is talk of Constantinople, which obviously pulls in Constantine. There is also discussion or imagery of the Nicene Creed, the Treaty of Nicaea, which brings in another bit of very important information. And then, of course, the Sesquivi agreement. I'm probably killing the pronunciation, but Sesquivi, I don't know exactly, but it's essentially what it is, 1666. So if we back up and have a little look about the reference to what and when the Kingdom of Mana was originally recognized, and that part of the world being taken over by a series of different leaders and military engagements through to Alexander the Great, and then, of course, the Roman Empire. Well, who took over the Roman Empire? And what has consequently occurred since? Well, Constantine took out the Roman Empire, and he used the Roman Empire as a mechanism. He used the Roman army as the military mechanism, and he used the church, of which he made sure that they brought in the heads of the Holy Roman Church, which then became Catholicism, Catholic Church as time's gone on, Christianity for all intents and purpose, and they used the church going back to as far as, I think it's 241 AD, when San Marino became the first country. Now that's a very important thing to consider, the first country. Okay, now Constantinople came into being and was the most powerful country on the planet at that time. Now, in modern times, that country is known as the Mana World Holding Trust. But in those times, and since then, you can see by looking at the dates of the Nicene Creed, Nicene Treaty that were held, that Constantine and the church initiated what would be a series of shifts and changes, but it was the Nicene Creed and the Nicene Treaty that was being instigated, that they brought all the bishops. It's in a lot of this stuff's in the history books. What was created isn't necessarily in the mainstream history books, but all of the bishops were brought in. I think thousands of them. I think there's reference to 1,600 or more from all over the place, and they were given the agenda. And this is what we will be doing. We will be proceeding across the planet, instigating our agenda, Christianity, go and convert the heathens, go and teach them what it is to have a creator and an idol to follow, and this is what we'll do it under the guise of is Catholic Church. Well, the rest is kind of history, as we know. Many people know that the Catholic Church has been controlling many things for a long time, including a lot of the secrets that are held in their archives and their library. And a lot of those, what have been kept in that library, are the records of me, you, everybody else. That's another topic that I back up to. So as time went on, and women through the Treaty of Nicaea and Nicene Creed were demonized, were turned into all manner of heretics, witches, went on for ages and ages and ages, separated from men in the capacity of which they were looked at. Men, of course, being used in war after war after war after war. Coming back, there has been no true fatherly aspect in society for thousands of years. It's been missing. Mostly because all of our men, all of our greatest men have been, and all of our men in general, I'm not separating the greatest from any other men, were sent off to war. Traumatized beyond belief if they came home. More often than not coming home. Leaving women and families back at home wondering what on earth is going on. Well, this has been going on for a long, long time. So we fast forward back from that Treaty of Nicaea, the fact that Constantinople was at the time Mana World Holding Trust as it's known today. Kingdom of its own. It was holding all of the original resources and assets of the original treaty that went back many thousands of years before the time of Rome. But if we just go from Constantinople, what we're seeing in that video, that final history video, is we're seeing a few snapshots of some truths that we need to get our heads around, especially for all those people that claim to be woke and or that are hacking reality. We really have to know what's happened in our history before we can really do that, before we can really be considered to be woke or have appropriately hacked reality. But so let's have a look at 1666 Sesquive Agreement. Was the use of dog Latin, the use of trickery, and certain colours of law, and the variations of the law families that were used to hijack everybody, put them into a dead system. And this is where we've been since then. So that essentially was set in motion in 1666. Which in that video as well. And then in 1667, the fact that royal monarchs used to have to earn their position. They used to have to be able to, take the bull by the horns literally, or the country or their communities, take them into the future. Well, in 1666, it just so happened after we were turned into the dead system, and our birth certificates and everything else have been traded as assets and commodities, which is what takes us where we are today. And through Admiralty and Maritime Law, we've been gradually further and further held into a prison of sorts that we've not wittingly, but quite cleverly, by what has been orchestrated, given away our freedoms a little bit at a time through our own consent, essentially, with everything that we've signed and verbalized through implied consent. So from 1666, all put into this dead system, birth certificates taken, traded into Admiralty Maritime Law. Then 1667, the word goes out, okay, it's time to go out and make sure we continue to keep this country scenario. First country, again, backing up Holy See, about 241 AD. By 1600s, we got many, many, many countries. And they've all been settled by none other than, it doesn't take rocket science, you don't need to be woke. I'm not trying to hack reality, just the reality of where we're at. And in 1667, of course, laws coming in that essentially allowed for corrupt royals to inherit their roles into royalty, no longer have to earn them. as the strongest bull in the shed, so to speak. So those couple of aspects being added to the equation, we fast forward, there's a few other things in terms of Rothschilds taking control of central banks and everything else around the same time. A few other disasters. Usually all these changes follow after a disaster that's been implemented. And then, of course, the remedy presented after. Sound any different to right now? No. So, here we are right now. COVID-19. Well, let's just go back 20 years ago. 9/11, the Twin Towers. Whatever you specifically believe about that, most people understand that there was an orchestration that went on in there, and you don't get planes in that kind of airspace without some kind of a major thumbs up from the top. They just aren't allowed. Box cutters and folks, it just didn't happen in that way. So let's fast forward 20 more years to where we're at today, because everybody's kind of forgotten, doesn't want to think about 9/11. Well, we're sitting in a very similar position. This is, folks, this is game time. This is the bottom of the ninth, and for all intent and purpose. Baseball game. And this is the last few pitches. If you can't grasp the nature of well, go and do some homework. You know, a lot of people are onto it. There's a lot of the movement towards sovereignty. Yes, but it's not just about claiming it. You can't just say, I'm sovereign, unfortunately, because the system doesn't facilitate that. You have to go in and actually change that. In order to be able to change that, you have to work out how it came to pass, then taking the appropriate measures to undo that. Well, certain key figures I know have done so. And that ties us back into the Kingdom of Mana. And the royal monarch, Michael Luril I, of the modern day Kingdom of Mana. In conjunction with the Mana World Holding Trust, which dates back a long time, different names, but was known at one point in time as Constantinople, with Constantine in control of that wealth, that global wealth, those collateral accounts that were backing that series of treaties that were created at the very, very beginning of this. That goes back 16,500 years ago. So, let's just focus the last couple of thousand years. Constantinople took over the Roman Empire, used the church as a vehicle to go out and seed the planet. Certain periods along the line, and addendums and amendments were made, like the Sesquive Agreement, bringing us to where we are today. Now, COVID-19, if I were a betting man, I'd say that the guys that had control of the old system, who no longer do, who are controlling it in such a heinous, horrible manner, that's what the old Mana World Holding Trust was controlled by some very, very bad people. No longer are they in control of that. And the people that are here as the protectorate for humanity through the Kingdom of Mana, and are quite literally, at this moment, the only thing between the agenda of those with COVID-19 that dates back quite some time, and the Kingdom of Mana and the Mana World Holding Trust as it currently stands today. The last period of time where after the Second World War, when the League of Nations was created, Mana World Holding Trust, as it was known then, is known as the unknown country, strangely enough, was one of the signatories of the League of Nations that evolved into the United Nations. Now, all of these countries for the last couple of thousand years, including the UN, IMF, World Bank, all those were classified as sub-sovereignties. The only sovereignty that actually exists officially, appropriately, with all the stamps and bells and whistles, is the Mana World Holding Trust and the Kingdom of Mana. There's a couple of other countries going through, well, Many of the other countries are going through those processes at the moment to reclaim their sovereignty. But while that's happening, since 2016 and the Kingdom of Mana came back to fulfill the original treaties, there's been a little bit of an issue with the old controllers trying to push their agenda. And you've seen it in the last 12 months. It was happening before that. Since 2016, there's been a lot happening behind the scenes, where the new incarnation of the Mana World Holding Trust that sits in the hands of the appropriate parties to do the right thing for humanity and fulfill the original treaties will be implemented and instigated and is currently being done in all the best ways, most appropriate ways possible by Michael Uriel I and the teams of the Kingdom of Mana in conjunction with the Mana World Holding Trust. That's the global finances and resources. So, try not to go around in too many circles about that video that I posted a couple of weeks ago now. There are major threads in that give us the answers right now as to how to go about reclaiming our sovereign rights, not just as a throwaway line or just as a heartfelt desire, but in a system that we don't even realize was created so long ago to shift and change the nature of the schematics within that system in order to officially reclaim our sovereignty and claim it in our heart, and claim it because we have more than just the intentions to do so. The Kingdom of Mana at this point in time, while most people don't know it because there's so much drama going on behind the scenes and the media's got so much of everybody's attention, but the Kingdom of Mana is quite literally the only country on the planet right now that is sovereign in conjunction with the Mana World Holding Trust, and that is seeking to assist every other country to be able to move back in that same way before countries began, which is a very new thing. Before that, empires and kingdoms. So let's just do a little bit of homework, a little bit of Q&A. We can discuss these things a little bit more in detail, but Kingdom of Mana is here exercising its sovereign rights on behalf of all free sovereign citizens and countries of the world that have been subverted and held captive since the creation of countries. That's it for today. I realize it's almost been 20 minutes of rambling. I hope that brings a little bit more clarity, and if not, ask questions and let's have some more discussions. Okay, take care. Crazy times. Breathe deep. And have great hope that all that is good in the world can find a place back to the front of everything that we know to be true. Take care. God bless.